When she knocked on his door that rainy night, Alex thought he was helping a desperate neighbor. He didn't realize he was the one being hunted. The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday night. Alex sat at his desk, staring at lines of code on his computer screen. The house felt too quiet, like it always did these days. 6 months had passed since his divorce, and he was still getting used to living alone again. He rubbed his tired eyes and glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. Time to call it a day. The software project could wait until tomorrow. Alex saved his work and was about to shut down his computer when he heard it. 3 sharp knocks on his front door. Who could be visiting this late? Alex paused, listening. The knocking came again, more urgent this time. He walked downstairs, flipping on the porch light as he approached the door. Through the peephole, he could see a woman standing on his doorstep, completely soaked from the rain. It was Lisa, his neighbor from down the street. She lived in the blue house with the white fence, the one with the perfect garden that always made his yard look messy in comparison. They had exchanged polite waves and small talk over the past year, but nothing more than that. Alex opened the door, and Lisa looked up at him with wide, worried eyes. Her dark hair was plastered to her head, and her light summer dress clung to her body from the rain. She was shivering. "Alex, I'm so sorry to bother you this late," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "I didn't know where else to go. What happened? Are you okay?" Alex stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. The rain was blowing onto his entryway. Lisa stepped inside, leaving small puddles on his hardwood floor. "My husband and I had a terrible fight tonight. He got so angry that he locked me out before driving off to catch his flight. His business trip, you know. And my phone died and I don't have my keys and—" Her voice trailed off as she looked around his living room. Alex noticed she seemed to be taking in every detail. The bookshelves, the old leather couch, the family photos he still hadn't taken down. "That's awful," Alex said, grabbing a clean towel from the bathroom closet. "Here, you must be freezing." Lisa took the towel gratefully, but as she wrapped it around her shoulders, Alex noticed something odd. Her purse, clutched tightly in her hand, looked completely dry. Not a single drop of water on the leather surface. "Thank you so much," Lisa said, giving him a small smile. "I saw your office light on and thought maybe you were still awake. I hope you don't mind me coming here instead of calling the police or something." "Of course not," Alex replied, though he found it strange that she would choose his house over others on the street. There were closer neighbors, people she knew better. "Let me make you some coffee to warm you up." As Alex moved toward the kitchen, he heard the soft click of his front door lock turning. He glanced back and saw Lisa's hand dropping away from the deadbolt. When she noticed him looking, she gave him that same small smile. "Just making sure the door is closed properly," she explained. "The wind was so strong out there." Alex nodded, though something felt off. The wind hadn't seemed that strong when he opened the door. He pushed the thought away and focused on making coffee. Lisa followed him into the kitchen, standing closer than necessary as he worked. "I really can't thank you enough," she said, leaning against the counter. "I've been having such a hard time lately. My husband travels so much for work and I get so lonely in that big house all by myself." Alex poured water into the coffee maker, very aware of Lisa's presence beside him. "How long has he been traveling?" he asked, trying to make conversation. "Oh, constantly. At least 3 weeks out of every month. Sometimes I wonder why we even stay married." Lisa's voice had a sad quality to it, but when Alex glanced at her, she was watching him with intense focus. The coffee maker began to brew, filling the kitchen with its familiar sound. Lisa moved even closer, and Alex caught a hint of her perfume. It was expensive, sophisticated, not the kind of thing someone would wear to have a fight with their husband late at night. "I have to admit something," Lisa said suddenly. "I've noticed you working in your office window at night. The light is always on so late. You must be very dedicated to your work." Alex felt a small chill that had nothing to do with the rain outside. His office window faced the street, but it was on the 2nd floor. To see him working, someone would have to be looking specifically for him, or watching from a particular angle. "I work from home," he said carefully. "Software development. It keeps me busy, especially since your divorce, I imagine." Lisa's words hit him like a cold splash of water. "I mean, work probably helps you keep your mind off things." Alex stared at her. He had never told any of his neighbors about his divorce. He had been careful to keep his personal business private. The divorce papers had been handled through lawyers, and his ex-wife had moved out quietly while he was at work one day. How could Lisa know? How did you? He started to ask, but Lisa interrupted him. Oh, small neighborhoods, you know how it is. People talk. She waved her hand dismissively, but her eyes never left his face. Plus, I noticed you started eating lunch outside on your back deck around the same time every day. You seemed like someone who needed fresh air and thinking time. The coffee maker finished brewing with a final gurgle. Alex poured 2 cups, his mind racing. Lisa seemed to know an awful lot about his daily routine. His lunch breaks, his work schedule, his personal life. It was starting to feel less like neighborly awareness and more like something else entirely. You've been very observant, Alex said, handing her a cup. Lisa took the coffee and wrapped both hands around the warm mug. I notice things about people I find interesting. Her smile was different now, less worried, more confident. You're not like the other men in this neighborhood, Alex. You're quiet, thoughtful. You read books instead of just watching television all night. Alex felt trapped between flattery and unease. You can see my living room from your house? Only if I'm in my garden at the right time of evening, Lisa replied smoothly. I do a lot of gardening. It helps me think. The rain continued to pound against the kitchen window. Lisa sipped her coffee and studied Alex over the rim of her mug. There was something calculating in her gaze, as if she were measuring his reactions to everything she said. Your husband, Alex said, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. When will he be back from his trip? Not for 5 days. Lisa's answer came quickly, almost eagerly. He's in Chicago for a big conference. Very important meetings all week long. 5 days. Alex wondered why she had mentioned that specific detail so readily. If she was just looking for help getting back into her house, why would the length of her husband's trip matter? Lisa set down her coffee cup and moved closer to Alex again. I have another confession to make, she said softly. I didn't actually try any other houses before coming here. I came straight to yours. Why? Alex asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew the answer. Lisa's smile widened, and for the first time that night, it looked completely genuine. Not worried, not grateful, not sad, just satisfied, like someone whose plan was working exactly as intended. Because, she said, I've been hoping for a reason to knock on your door for a very long time. Alex stared at Lisa, her words echoing in his mind. She had been hoping for a reason to knock on his door for a very long time. The coffee cup in his hand suddenly felt too heavy, and he set it down on the kitchen counter with shaking fingers. What do you mean by that? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer would change everything. Lisa didn't look away from his gaze. If anything, she seemed more confident now, like a poker player who had finally decided to show their cards. I mean exactly what I said. Alex, I've been watching you, thinking about you, wondering what it would be like to have a real conversation with you. She moved closer, and Alex caught the scent of her perfume again. It was definitely expensive, the kind of fragrance that lingered in a room long after someone left. Not the kind of thing a woman would wear to have a late-night argument with her husband. How long have you been watching me? Alex asked, his voice quieter now. Since the day you moved in, Lisa replied without hesitation. 14 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days ago. You carried in a box of books first, before any furniture. I remember thinking that told me something important about who you were. The specificity of her answer made Alex's skin crawl. This wasn't casual neighborly observation. This was something else entirely. I work from home, Lisa continued, settling herself more comfortably against his kitchen counter. My husband travels constantly, and I have a lot of time to notice things. Like how you eat lunch on your back deck every day at exactly 12:30. Like how you read for an hour every evening by your living room window. Like how you never have visitors except for the pizza delivery guy on Friday nights. Alex felt exposed, like someone had been reading his diary without permission. That's not normal, Lisa. No, she agreed readily. It's not normal at all. But neither is how lonely I've been. Neither is how empty my marriage has become. Neither is the way my heart races every time I see you check your mailbox. She pushed away from the counter and walked toward the living room, expecting him to follow. Alex found himself trailing behind her, mesmerized despite his growing unease. You want to know what I noticed first about you? Lisa asked, running her finger along the spine of one of his books. You never rush. Everyone else in this neighborhood is always in a hurry, rushing to work, rushing home, rushing through their lives like they're afraid of missing something. But you move like you're actually present in each moment. Alex watched her explore his space with familiarity, that shouldn't have been possible for someone who had never been inside his house before. She knew exactly where his light switches were, which floorboards creaked, how his furniture was arranged. "Lisa, how do you know so much about my house?" She turned to face him, and her smile was different now. Less desperate, more predatory. "Your kitchen window faces my garden. Your living room window faces my bedroom. Your office window faces my kitchen. I've had plenty of opportunities to observe." The casual way she said it made Alex's blood run cold. "You've been spying on me." "I prefer to think of it as getting to know you," Lisa corrected. "And what I learned is that you're exactly the kind of man I've been looking for my entire life." Alex backed toward his front door, suddenly wanting distance between them. "What kind of man is that?" "The kind who reads poetry and cries at movies when he thinks nobody's watching. The kind who feeds stray cats but pretends it's just because they keep coming around. The kind who calls his mother every Sunday at 3 o'clock and actually listens to what she says." Each observation hit Alex like a physical blow. These were private moments, things nobody should know about him unless they had been watching very, very carefully. "The kind who's been as lonely as I have," Lisa continued, moving closer again. "The kind who might understand what it feels like to be invisible in your own life." Despite his fear and anger, Alex felt a pang of sympathy at the pain in her voice. "So you decided to manipulate your way into my house?" "I decided to create an opportunity to meet you properly," Lisa said. "I've tried everything else. I timed my garden work to match your lunch breaks. I walked my neighbor's dog past your house hoping you'd strike up a conversation. I even pretended to have car trouble right in front of your driveway." Alex remembered that day. He had offered to help, and Lisa had thanked him politely before saying her husband was on his way. At the time, he had thought she was just being cautious about accepting help from a stranger. "You planned all of this," Alex said, gesturing around his living room. "The fight with my husband. Getting locked out, coming here in the rain. Yes, I planned it all." Lisa sat down on his couch like she belonged there. "But I didn't plan how I would feel once I was actually here, talking to you face to face." Alex remained standing by the door, his hand resting on the deadbolt. "And how do you feel?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment, and when she looked up at him, her confident mask had slipped. "Terrified," she said softly, "because everything I imagined about you is turning out to be true, and I don't know what to do with that." "What did you imagine?" "That you're kind. That you're intelligent without being condescending. That you would listen to me ramble about my feelings without trying to fix me or dismiss me." She wrapped her arms around herself. "That you might be the first person in years who would see me as more than just an accessory to someone else's life." Alex felt his anger wavering. The vulnerability in her voice sounded genuine, but he couldn't forget how calculated everything else had been. "Your husband," he said. "Is he really on a business trip?" "Yes, he left 2 hours ago for Chicago. He'll be gone for 5 days. Lisa met his eyes. "I didn't lie about that part. And the fight?" Lisa's smile was rueful. "There was no fight. I told him I was visiting my sister in the next town. Then I gave him my house keys and told him to lock up when he left. So you're not actually locked out?" "No. But I am actually alone. And I am actually tired of pretending that my marriage is anything more than two people sharing a house and a bank account." Alex processed this information, trying to separate the lies from the truth. "Why me, Lisa? Why go through all this elaborate planning for someone you've never actually spoken to?" Lisa stood up and walked to his bookshelf again, pulling out a volume of poetry he had read so many times the pages were worn soft. "Because you read Pablo Neruda and keep the book where you can reach it easily. Because you cry during sad movies and don't try to hide it. Because you're gentle with stray animals and patient with elderly neighbors." She opened the book to a page that was clearly well-loved, marked with coffee stains and marginalia in his handwriting. "Because when I watch you read, you smile at the beautiful passages like you're discovering them for the first time, even though I know you've read this book dozens of times." Lisa closed the book carefully and placed it back on the shelf. "Because I've spent 3 years married to a man who has never once smiled at anything I've said, and watching you find joy in simple words gives me hope that real connection is still possible." Alex felt his defenses crumbling despite himself. The woman standing in his living room was clearly manipulative and possibly unstable, but she was also painfully lonely and surprisingly perceptive about who he was as a person. "This is crazy," he said finally. "Yes," Lisa agreed, "completely insane. But Alex, I'd rather do something crazy that might lead to happiness than keep doing safe things that guarantee misery. She moved toward him again, but this time she stopped just out of arm's reach. I know I don't deserve your trust after lying about how I got here, but I'm asking you to consider the possibility that everything else I've told you tonight has been completely honest. Alex looked at her, really looked at her. The desperate woman who had appeared on his doorstep was gone, replaced by someone who seemed both dangerous and fragile, calculating and genuine. What are you asking me to do, Lisa? I'm asking you to let me stay a little longer. I'm asking you to talk to me like I'm a real person instead of just a problem to be solved. I'm asking you to consider that maybe we're both tired of being lonely. The rain outside had softened to a gentle patter against the windows. Alex realized that at some point during their conversation, the storm had begun to pass, leaving behind the kind of peaceful quiet that made honest conversations feel possible. If I ask you to leave right now, will you go? Lisa nodded immediately. Yes, and you'll never see me again except for polite waves when we're getting our mail. And if I ask you to stay? Lisa's smile was small but genuine. Then I'll try very hard to be worth the risk you're taking on me. Alex sat in silence for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Lisa waited patiently, not pushing or pressuring, just letting him work through the weight of what she was asking. The rain outside had stopped completely now, leaving behind the kind of deep quiet that only comes after a storm. Okay, Alex said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Let's say I take this leap of faith with you. Let's say I decide to trust you despite everything. What happens next? Lisa's face lit up with cautious hope. I don't know, she said honestly. I planned everything up to this moment, but I never let myself imagine what would come after. I was too afraid you'd say no. Alex stood up and walked to his kitchen, needing movement to help him think. Lisa followed at a respectful distance, not crowding him but not letting him retreat either. You said your husband will be gone for 5 days, Alex said, opening his refrigerator and staring at its contents without really seeing them. What did you tell him about where you'd be? That I was visiting my sister across the state. She lives 4 hours away, so he wouldn't expect me to call much or come home early. Lisa leaned against his kitchen counter. I have 5 days of complete freedom, Alex. 5 days where nobody expects anything from me, where I can just be myself without performing any roles. Alex closed the refrigerator and turned to face her. And you want to spend those 5 days here? With me? If you'll have me, Lisa said softly, not as some dramatic romantic gesture, just as two people getting to know each other without all the usual barriers and expectations. Alex felt his heart racing. The practical part of his mind was screaming warnings about adultery and complications and neighbors gossiping. But another part of him, a part that had been quiet for too long, was whispering about possibilities and connection, and the chance to feel truly alive again. What would we tell people? If anyone saw you here, staying here? Lisa shrugged. That I'm a friend who needed somewhere to stay for a few days. It's not even completely a lie. Alex walked to his back door and looked out at his deck where he had eaten so many solitary lunches while Lisa watched from her garden. You know what the strangest part of all this is? What? I'm not as shocked as I should be. Part of me always wondered if you noticed me too. There were moments when I'd catch you looking in my direction, and I'd wonder if I was imagining the connection I thought I felt. Lisa moved to stand beside him at the door. You weren't imagining it. I was terrible at hiding how I felt about you. My husband never noticed because he never really looks at me, but I was sure you must have realized I was paying attention. Alex thought back to their brief encounters at mailboxes and in driveways. There had been something electric in those moments, an awareness that felt different from ordinary neighborly politeness. The day you pretended to have car trouble, Alex said. I wanted to ask if you needed a ride anywhere, but then you mentioned your husband coming and I backed off. I was hoping you would offer, Lisa admitted. I had this fantasy that we'd end up having coffee somewhere and talking for hours. But when you stepped back, I realized you were being respectful of my marriage, and that just made me admire you more. Alex turned to look at her directly. Lisa, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if you stay here and we explore whatever this is between us, I can't treat it as casual. I'm not good at keeping things compartmentalized. If I let myself care about you, I'll really care about you. Lisa's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Is that a warning or a promise? Both, I think. Alex reached out tentatively and touched her face, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. I spent 3 years in a marriage where I was always holding back part of myself, always being careful not to want too much or expect too much. I can't do that again. Lisa leaned into his touch. I don't want you to hold back. That's exactly what I'm trying to escape from. Relationships where we're all just playing roles instead of being real with each other. Alex felt something settle into place inside his chest, like a puzzle piece finding its proper spot. Then stay, he said. Stay and let's figure out what happens when two people are completely honest with each other. Lisa's smile was radiant. Are you sure? No, Alex said, laughing despite himself. I'm terrified and confused and pretty sure this is the most reckless thing I've ever done. But I'm also more excited than I've been in years, and that has to count for something. Lisa stood on her toes and kissed his cheek gently. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Alex felt the warmth of her lips against his skin and realized that something fundamental had shifted between them. The manipulation and games were done. What remained was two lonely people choosing to be vulnerable with each other. I should call in sick tomorrow, Alex said. If we're going to do this, I want to do it right. I want to actually spend time together, not just steal moments between work calls. Lisa pulled back to look at him in surprise. You do that? Lisa, when's the last time you had someone's complete attention for an entire day? When's the last time someone chose to spend time with you just because they wanted to be around you? Lisa's lower lip trembled. I honestly can't remember. Then tomorrow we start there. No schedules, no obligations, no distractions. Just us figuring out who we are when we're together. Lisa wiped her eyes and smiled. What will we do? Whatever we want. Cook breakfast together. Talk about books. Take a walk. Watch old movies. Play board games. Have the kind of lazy, unstructured day that people in complicated lives never get to have. That sounds like heaven, Lisa said softly. Alex looked around his kitchen, trying to see it through Lisa's eyes. Tomorrow morning, she would be here when he woke up. They would make coffee together and figure out what to eat for breakfast. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Are you having second thoughts? Lisa asked, reading the expression on his face. Yes, Alex said honestly. But I'm having them while still wanting you to stay, so I think that's okay. Lisa laughed. Good, because I'm having second thoughts too. This is either going to be wonderful or it's going to be a complete disaster. Maybe it'll be both, Alex said. Maybe that's what makes it worth doing. They stood together in his kitchen, looking out at the night sky that was finally beginning to clear. Alex could see stars appearing between the clouds, and he took it as a good sign. Lisa? Yes? Tomorrow morning when we wake up and this all feels real and permanent instead of like something that happened in a dream. Promise me we'll still be honest with each other. Lisa took his hand and squeezed it. I promise. No more games, no more manipulation. Just truth even when it's scary. Alex squeezed back. Even when it's scary, he agreed. They headed upstairs together, Alex showing Lisa to the guest room where she would sleep. As she stood in the doorway looking at the simple bed and dresser, Alex realized that his house would never feel the same again. Lisa's presence had changed something fundamental about the space, made it feel less like a refuge and more like a home. Good night, Alex, Lisa said softly. Good night, Lisa. As Alex lay in his own bed an hour later, listening to the soft sounds of Lisa moving around in the room next door, he marveled at how completely his life had changed in the space of a few hours. This morning he had been a careful, controlled man living a predictable existence. Tonight he was someone who had chosen connection over safety, possibility over certainty. He fell asleep smiling, more hopeful about the future than he had been in years. Alex woke up to the smell of coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. Sunlight streamed through his bedroom windows and he could hear Lisa humming in the kitchen below. For a moment he lay still and just listened, marveling at how natural it had become to wake up in a house that felt truly alive. 3 months had passed since that rainy night when Lisa had knocked on his door and changed everything. 3 months of learning each other's habits and preferences, of long conversations that stretched into the early morning hours, of quiet moments that felt more intimate than anything Alex had ever experienced. Lisa's divorce had been finalized 2 weeks ago. Her husband had been angry but not particularly surprised, and the proceedings had been handled with the same efficient business-like approach he applied to everything else in his life. Lisa had moved her belongings out of the blue house with the white fence, keeping only what truly mattered to her. Good morning, sleepyhead, Lisa called as Alex made his way downstairs in his pajamas and bare feet. I made blueberry muffins. Alex found her in his kitchen, wearing one of his old college sweatshirts and a pair of jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked nothing like the perfectly composed woman who had appeared on his doorstep 3 months ago, and Alex loved this version of her infinitely more. You spoil me, Alex said, kissing the top of her head as he reached around her for a coffee mug. I like spoiling you, Lisa replied, leaning back against him. Besides, I owe you about 1,000 home-cooked meals for all the takeout we ate during those first few weeks. Alex laughed, remembering how they had been so absorbed in getting to know each other that they had forgotten to eat proper meals half the time. Those were good weeks. The best, Lisa agreed, turning in his arms to face him. But I like this even better. I like having a routine with you, a real life together instead of just stolen time. Alex studied her face, looking for any signs of regret or uncertainty. What he saw instead was contentment, a deep satisfaction that matched his own feelings about how their relationship had developed. No second thoughts about giving up your old life? He asked. Lisa shook her head firmly. The only thing I regret is waiting so long to take the risk. I wasted too many years being afraid of wanting something better. The timer on the oven chimed and Lisa pulled away to check on her muffins. Alex watched her move around his kitchen with easy familiarity, and he felt that same surge of gratitude and amazement that hit him several times a day. Somehow, despite the unconventional way they had found each other, they had built something real and lasting together. I have news, Lisa said, setting the hot muffin pan on a cooling rack. I got a call yesterday while you were at the store. Good news or bad news? Good news, I think. Remember that teaching position I applied for at the community college? Alex's face lit up. They offered it to you? Lisa nodded, grinning. Starting in the fall semester. 2 literature classes and 1 creative writing workshop. It's not much money, but it's a chance to do something that actually matters to me. Alex swept her up in his arms, spinning her around the kitchen. Lisa, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. When he set her down, Lisa's eyes were bright with tears. I never thought I'd have the courage to apply for something like that. But living with you, seeing how you've built a career doing work you actually enjoy, it made me realize I could do the same thing. Alex felt a familiar warmth in his chest, the feeling he got whenever he realized how much they had helped each other grow over the past few months. You've always had the courage. You just needed someone to believe in you. We've been good for each other, Lisa said softly. Better than I ever imagined we could be. They ate breakfast on the back deck where Alex had once eaten all his meals alone. Lisa had planted a small herb garden in pots along the railing, and the morning sun caught the leaves of basil and rosemary, filling the air with fresh scents. I've been thinking, Alex said, cutting into his muffin, about what comes next for us. Lisa raised an eyebrow. That sounds serious. Not serious in a bad way, Alex assured her. Serious in a good way. Lisa, these have been the happiest 3 months of my life. Waking up with you here, sharing meals, talking about our days, building something together. It's everything I didn't know I was missing. Lisa reached across the small table and took his hand. It's been perfect for me too, but I hear a but coming, Alex smiled. Not a but, a so. So I was wondering if you'd be interested in making this arrangement more permanent. Lisa's breath caught. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you'd like to make this officially your home too. Not as my guest or my girlfriend staying over, but as my partner in building a real life together. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, and Alex felt his heart racing as he waited for her response. Alex, she said finally, are you sure? I know how I came into your life wasn't exactly conventional. Are you sure you want to build a future with someone who started by manipulating you? Alex squeezed her hand. Lisa, you didn't manipulate me into loving you. You manipulated me into giving you a chance to show me who you really are. Everything that's happened since that first night has been real and honest and beautiful. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Besides, I've done some manipulating of my own. I've deliberately worked from home more often so I could spend more time with you. I've timed my grocery runs to match when you like to take walks. I've been just as strategic about creating opportunities for us to be together. Lisa laughed. That's completely different and you know it. Is it? We've both been doing whatever we could to build something together. The only difference is that you were braver about it in the beginning. Lisa stood up and walked to the railing, looking out at the neighborhood where she had once lived a completely different life. Do you know what I love most about living here with you? What? I love that I can be myself completely. I don't have to perform or pretend or try to be the person I think you want me to be. I can just exist as I am and you see me and love me anyway. Alex joined her at the railing. That's exactly how I feel about you. You make me feel like being myself is enough. Lisa turned to face him, her eyes shining with tears. Yes, she said. Yes, I want to make this our official home together. I want to build a real future with you. Alex felt like his heart might burst with happiness. He pulled Lisa into his arms and kissed her properly, tasting the sweetness of blueberry muffins and the promise of years of mornings just like this one. I love you, he said against her lips. Not just for what you've brought to my life, but for who you are when you're brave enough to be completely yourself. I love you too, Lisa whispered back. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me, from the very beginning. Later that evening, as they sat on the couch reading together, a habit that had become sacred to both of them, Alex marveled at the path that had led them here. Lisa had taken an enormous risk that rainy night, gambling everything on the possibility that a stranger might see something in her worth knowing. But looking at her now, curled up beside him with a book of poetry in her hands and a contented smile on her face, Alex realized that the biggest risk hadn't been hers at all. The biggest risk had been his own willingness to let someone matter to him again, to open his heart to the possibility of genuine connection despite all the ways it could go wrong. They had both chosen love over safety, possibility over certainty, and it had led them to something neither of them could have imagined on their own. As Lisa reached over to show him a passage she wanted to share, Alex felt the same surge of gratitude he experienced every day. Sometimes the best things in life really did come from the most unexpected places, from chances taken in storms, from strangers who turned out to be exactly what you never knew you were looking for. Alex stood frozen by his front door, his hand still resting on the lock that Lisa had turned when she first entered his house. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like a physical thing. Behind him was everything safe and predictable about his life. In front of him was Lisa, complicated and mysterious and possibly the most dangerous person he had ever met. You're thinking very hard, Lisa observed, settling back onto his couch. I can practically hear the gears turning in your head. This is a big decision, Alex said, finally moving away from the door and sitting in the chair across from her. You're asking me to trust someone who just admitted to stalking me for over a year. I'm asking you to trust someone who cares enough about you to take enormous risks, just for the chance to have a real conversation. Lisa's voice was gentle but firm. There's a difference. Alex rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building behind his eyes. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? How do I know that your vulnerability right now isn't just the next step in whatever game you're playing? Lisa was quiet for a long moment, considering his question seriously. You don't know, she said finally. You can't know. That's what makes it a leap of faith. She leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. But Alex, I can tell you this. I've never been more terrified in my entire life than I am right now. If this was just a game to me, I wouldn't be shaking. Alex looked closer and realized she was right. Despite her confident words, her hands were trembling slightly, and there was a tightness around her eyes that spoke of genuine fear. What are you afraid of? He asked. Everything, Lisa said with a shaky laugh. I'm afraid you'll send me away. I'm afraid you'll let me stay but never trust me. I'm afraid that I've built you up so much in my mind that the real you will disappoint me. I'm afraid that the real me will disappoint you. She stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the rain-soaked street. Most of all, I'm afraid that I've waited too long to take a risk like this and I've forgotten how to be genuine with another person. Alex watched her profile in the dim light from his table lamp. She looked younger somehow, less polished than the confident woman who had been manipulating their conversation just minutes before. Tell me about your marriage, he said. The real story this time. Lisa turned back to face him. We met in graduate school. I was studying literature, he was in business. He was everything I thought I wanted. Ambitious, successful, charming in public. He made me feel like I was part of something important. She returned to the couch, tucking her legs underneath her. The problem started slowly. First, he began making decisions about our social life without consulting me, then about where we would live. What kind of house we would buy, how we would spend our money. Eventually, I realized that I had become just another asset he managed, like his investment portfolio or his professional network. When did you stop loving him? The question seemed to catch Lisa off guard. She was quiet for a long time, thinking. I'm not sure I ever loved him, she said finally. I loved the idea of him. I loved being chosen by someone so successful and confident. But loving someone and being grateful to them are different things. Alex felt a pang of recognition. His own marriage had fallen apart for similar reasons, though from the other side. His ex-wife had loved the stability he provided, but she had never loved the quiet, careful person he actually was. What about you? Lisa asked. When did you know your marriage was over? Alex had never talked about this with anyone, not even his closest friends. But something about the intimacy of the late hour and Lisa's honest vulnerability made the words come easier than expected. There was a moment, he said slowly. We were having dinner and she was telling me about her day. But she wasn't really talking to me. She was just processing her thoughts out loud while I happened to be sitting there. I realized that I could have been anyone. A tape recorder, a diary, a stranger on a bus. My specific presence wasn't necessary for her to feel heard. Lisa nodded knowingly, like being a supporting character in someone else's story. Exactly. And the worst part was realizing that I had let it happen. I had been so grateful that someone wanted to build a life with me that I forgot to make sure I was actually part of that life. Lisa moved closer to him on the couch, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Is that why you've been so careful since then? So controlled and isolated? Alex felt heat rise in his cheeks. You really have been watching me closely. I told you I had a lot of lonely evenings to fill, and watching you became my favorite way to fill them. Lisa's smile was soft. You want to know what I noticed about you that made me fall a little bit in love with you before we ever spoke? The words fall in love hit Alex like a physical blow. Lisa, you sing in the shower every morning, she continued. Badly, but with complete enthusiasm. You sing like you don't care who might hear you, like you're just happy to be alive for another day. Alex stared at her. You can hear me singing from your house? Your bathroom window faces my garden. I started timing my morning coffee to coincide with your shower concerts. Lisa laughed. You have terrible pitch. But you sing love songs with such genuine emotion that it made me wonder what it would feel like to be loved by someone who could feel that deeply about simple things. Alex didn't know whether to be flattered or horrified. That's incredibly invasive. Yes, it is, Lisa agreed without defensiveness. But it's also how I learned that underneath all your careful control, you're someone who still believes in romance and beauty and the possibility of joy. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand. Alex, my husband hasn't sung in the shower once in the 5 years we've been married. He hasn't hummed while doing dishes or smiled at sunsets or left books open to beautiful passages he wants to read again. He's forgotten how to find wonder in ordinary moments. Alex looked down at her hand covering his. Her skin was warm and soft, and he could feel her pulse beating rapidly against his wrist. What do you want from me, Lisa? Really? Lisa was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I want you to see me. Really see me. Not just the role I play or the image I project. I want to have conversations that matter. About books and ideas and dreams instead of just schedules and obligations. She paused, gathering courage. I want to feel like myself again instead of feeling like a stranger wearing my own skin. And I think maybe you want the same thing. Alex felt something shifting inside his chest. Like a door he had locked tight was beginning to creak open. You think I don't feel like myself? I think you've been so afraid of making mistakes that you stopped making choices at all. I think you've been so careful to avoid disappointment that you've avoided most chances for happiness too. Lisa moved even closer, and Alex could feel the warmth radiating from her body. I think you miss feeling excited about something, anything, even if that excitement comes with risk. Alex realized that his heart was beating faster, that his carefully controlled world suddenly felt small and suffocating. Looking at Lisa, seeing the hope and fear and desperate honesty in her eyes, he felt more alive than he had in months. This is insane, he said, but there was less conviction in his voice than before. The best things usually are, Lisa replied. Safe choices lead to safe lives. But safe lives aren't necessarily happy lives. Alex thought about his daily routine, his predictable schedule, his careful avoidance of anything that might complicate his neat existence. Then he looked at Lisa, who had risked her marriage and her reputation and her dignity just for the chance to have an honest conversation with him. "If we do this," he said slowly, "if we see where this leads, what happens to your marriage?" Lisa's smile was sad but determined. "My marriage has been over for years, Alex. We just hadn't made it official yet. Tonight isn't about you destroying my relationship. It's about me finally admitting that I don't have a relationship worth destroying." She squeezed his hand gently. "The question isn't what happens to my marriage. The question is what happens to us if we're brave enough to find out what we could be together." Alex felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, and Lisa was asking him to jump with her into something completely unknown. Everything rational told him to step back, to send her home, to return to his safe and predictable existence. But looking at her face, seeing the genuine connection sparking between them after months of loneliness, Alex realized that the most dangerous thing he could do was nothing at all.